I never planned to buy 1,500 acres of land. In fact, I wasn't even looking for property when this whole nightmare, and eventually, satisfaction, began. It started with a letter, a plain white envelope, no return address, just my name, printed neatly, like someone wanted to look professional while delivering bad news. Inside was a notice from an HOA. Not my HOA, not one I'd ever heard of. But according to them, I was in violation of community regulations. I remember reading the first line twice, then a third time. Dear homeowner, you are hereby notified that your property is in violation of the Lakeside Ridge Homeowners Association bylaws. I laughed out loud, because at the time, I didn't own a home in Lakeside Ridge. I didn't even live in that county. The letter went on to list violations: unauthorized land use, failure to maintain landscaping, unapproved structures, and my favorite, interference with HOA-managed property. They demanded I respond within 10 business days or face fines starting at $250 per day. I assumed it was a mistake, so I did what any reasonable person would do. I called the number listed at the bottom. A woman answered. Her tone was cold, sharp, like she'd already decided she didn't like me. Lakeside Ridge HOA, she said. This is Karen speaking. Yes, her name was actually Karen. I explained calmly that I didn't live there and must have received the notice in error. There was a pause. Then she said something that made my stomach tighten. Oh no, she replied. You definitely live there. Our records show you own parcel 17B. I froze. Parcel 17B. That wasn't a house. That was land. A lot of land. I told her she had to be mistaken. She scoffed. Sir, ignorance of HOA rules does not exempt you from compliance. We expect immediate cooperation. Something about the way she said cooperation made my blood pressure spike. I told her I'd look into it and hung up. That night, curiosity turned into concern. I pulled up county records, typed in parcel 17B, and that's when everything changed. Because parcel 17B wasn't a small plot. It was 1,500 acres, and sitting right in the middle of it was Lakeside Ridge, an entire suburban HOA development, built on my land. Let me rewind for a moment. About 6 months earlier, I'd inherited some money after a distant uncle passed away. He was one of those quiet, reclusive types who invested in land decades ago when it was dirt cheap. Literally dirt. He'd bought massive rural parcels across several states and just held on to them. No development, no selling, just property taxes paid and forgotten. One of those parcels was parcel 17B, 1,500 acres of undeveloped land on the outskirts of a growing suburban area. When the land transferred to me, I barely glanced at it. I lived out of state. I had no plans to develop it. I figured I'd sit on it for a few years and sell once prices rose. What I didn't know, what no one bothered to tell me, was that during the last 12 years, something had gone very wrong. According to county records, a developer named Brightstone Communities had built an entire HOA neighborhood on the land. Hundreds of homes, paved roads, streetlights, clubhouse, pool, parks, all without owning the land. I thought that had to be impossible. I mean, how do you build 300 homes on land you don't own? The answer? Paperwork fraud, expired easements, and a county clerk who stopped checking. Brightstone had leased a small corner of the land decades ago, about 40 acres. But as time passed, they expanded, quietly, illegally. By the time construction ended, the neighborhood sprawled across nearly 900 acres of my land. And no one ever corrected it. The HOA formed. Residents moved in. Property taxes got paid to the wrong entity. And for over a decade, everyone just assumed they owned what they lived on. Until I inherited it. Until Karen sent that letter. 2 days later, I received another letter. This one was thicker, more aggressive. It included a list of fines, a cease and desist notice, and a demand that I stop harassing HOA residents by questioning property boundaries. I hadn't even spoken to a resident. That's when I realized something important. They weren't confused. They were scared. So I hired a lawyer. A very good one. Within a week, we had satellite surveys, title histories, tax records, everything. It was airtight. The HOA didn't own the land. The homeowners didn't own the land. I did. My lawyer sent a formal notice to the HOA board requesting a meeting. They agreed, reluctantly. The meeting took place in their clubhouse. I walked in, and every head turned. You could feel the hostility. Karen was there. So were 6 board members, and a lawyer who looked extremely uncomfortable. I laid everything out calmly. Deeds, maps, records. Silence filled the room. Then Karen stood up. This is ridiculous, she snapped. We've lived here for years. You can't just walk in and claim ownership. I replied quietly, I didn't claim it. I inherited it. She laughed loudly. You expect us to believe that 300 families don't own their homes? I looked around the room. I expect you to believe the paperwork. Their lawyer cleared his throat and said the words that shattered the room. He's correct. That's when panic set in. Voices rose. Accusations flew. They demanded I sell them the land, cheaply. They threatened lawsuits. Karen pointed at me and said, "You'll regret this." That was my breaking point. I stood up. And I said very clearly, "You've been living on my land for 12 years. I'm done being polite." Here's what the HOA didn't understand. I didn't want revenge. I wanted control. So instead of evicting anyone, I did something smarter. I exercised my rights. First, I revoked unauthorized easements. That meant HOA-controlled parks, closed. Private roads, now toll access. Clubhouse, occupying my land without lease. Then I offered new lease agreements. Fair but firm. Each homeowner could lease the land under their house at market rate, or move. The HOA exploded. Karen went on a tirade at a community meeting, calling me a land tyrant. Residents were furious at first. Then reality hit. Their mortgages didn't include land ownership. Banks got involved. Lawyers got involved. And suddenly the HOA board vanished. Resigned overnight. Karen? She stopped answering calls. Within 3 months, 20 families signed leases. 80 sold their homes. Brightstone Communities was sued into bankruptcy. And the county? They apologized. Publicly. A year later, Lakeside Ridge doesn't exist anymore. At least, not as an HOA. It's now open land communities, individually leased, no HOA, no fines, no Karen. I converted the clubhouse into a public space. The park? Reopened, free. Property values stabilized. And the irony? Most residents thanked me, because for the first time, they weren't being bullied by an HOA built on lies. As for Karen, last I heard she moved into a condo with an HOA. And yes, they fined her.